Just waiting for that to come up. It's slow today. Yeah, our voting pads aren't coming up. Hmm? Okay, we'll just do a show of hands. All members of the committee are present. We have an agenda before us. Are there any amendments or additions to the agenda from the committee? Nothing? Okay. So we're going to try this again. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Oh, thank you. Mr. Morris and Ms. Friars, thank you very much. All those in favor? Oh, there we go. Our lights are flashing now. Oh, now they've gone off. There we go. Okay, we're going to get this under control here. Great. So that agenda has been approved. So at this point, this is where any of the members of the committee who foresee a conflict of interest on any of the items before us would declare that. We have nothing. Thank you very much. Our package also included our minutes from our December the 12th meeting, because we did not have a meeting in January. So hopefully you've had time to review those. If there's any errors or omissions, you can bring them forward now. And if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Councillor Allen, Councillor Granger, thank you. All those in favor, please register your vote now. And if there's any business arising from those minutes, as soon as we get our... Yep, that's unanimous. Thank you. Any business arising from the minutes? Nothing? Okay. So I'll get right down to the business at hand. First item on our agenda today is an application to rezone properties at 496, 498, and 500, 502 Mosher Street in Kingston, and that file belongs to Ms. Jacob. Your mic is on. It's all yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an application, land use bylaw map amendment application to rezone 2 properties located at Mosher Street, Kingston. And that is the location of the subject properties within the growth center of Kingston. The proposal is to rezone the subject properties from the residential 1-unit zone, R1 zone, to the residential mixed density R3 zone in order to enable the development of additional residential units on the subject properties. The property over here has an area of 19,546 square feet, and this property over here has an area of 19,697 square feet. Each property, as you can see, has a dwelling. Those are 2-unit dwellings, and the properties are located within the residential 1-unit zone, as I said earlier, and the zone does not permit 2-unit dwellings. As a result, the existing 2-unit dwellings are non-conforming uses. However, with the proposed rezoning, the non-conforming uses would become permitted uses within the zone. The properties are also subject to a few easements. So there is a 24-foot wide right-of-way running along the west end of this property and along the south end of this property. This benefits the property owners adjoining this said right-of-way for access. And there is also a 20-foot wide sewer easement marked in green here. benefiting the property owners towards the north over here to connect their sewage disposal system to the municipal sewer through this property. And there is also a 66-foot wide Nova Scotia power easement towards the north of this property. And more information on the subject property. The property over here, this one has a frontage of 120 feet, and this property has a frontage of 77 feet. As I said earlier, there is a 66-foot wide easement, Nova Scotia power easement, running from the frontage of this property towards the other end. And this part of the property is currently vegetated. Although we cannot see it here, it is vegetated at the moment, currently. And because of that, this portion remains inaccessible, and there is no direct access from Moshe Street to this property. The property can only be accessed via this property through a common driveway. In terms of topography, this part that is the Nova Scotia easement, where the Nova Scotia easement exists, is on the same level as the road level as Moshe Street. And over here, the access providing entry to this property slopes down, and this property over here sits at a lower elevation than road level, and these two structures are also at a lower elevation. In terms of vegetation, other than the vegetation over here, over the easement, there is also vegetation behind the dwellings. As I said earlier, the property is within the residential one-unit zone, which permits one-unit dwellings and secondary suites. The properties to the south and the east are in the same zone as well, and are currently developed with residential uses. And towards the north, the property borders the C1 zone, a general commercial zone, and there are several commercial establishments in this area. And behind the properties towards the west, there is the King's Rail Trail running along this line, and there is also a P1 zone, the commercial recreation zone, and there is a golf club within the P1 zone. This is a future land use map. The properties will continue to be in the residential designation in the future as well. Some photographs of the site. The image to the left, this shows the access providing entry to the property, to the lots, and to the right shows the two existing two-unit dwellings. And the image to the left here, this is the Nova Scotia easement. As you can see, it's currently vegetated. And this is a commercial establishment towards the north of the properties. And towards the south, we have two residential dwellings that you can see in this image. And towards the east, there is also another residential dwelling over here. Policy 5.3.3A is what enables this rezoning, and the policy states, Council shall consider amendments to any one of the zoning maps of the land use bylaw, provided the application is for a specific development, and A is to rezone land to another zone enabled within the same designation. Sorry. Unless the zone change is specifically prohibited within this strategy. So the current zoning of the property is R1 zone, which is within the residential designation. And these are some of the zones enabled within the residential designation. So if we look at criteria A here, it states all zones listed in policy 3.1.2 above, and this is policy 3.1.2. As you can see, residential mixed density R3 zone, the proposed zone, is listed within policy 3.1.2. As a result, council is able to consider this rezoning. And this policy also states the zone intent, which I'll come back to in a few seconds. Policy 5.3.5 applies to all rezoning applications, and the policy states, Council shall consider in relation to all applications to rezone land, Criteria A, the applicable zone placement policies, including any specific policy criteria for applying the proposed zone set out within this strategy. And this here is a zone placement policy. And it states, lands located in the zone are intended to contribute to a sense of activity and liveliness in the community, and shall be generally located on main transportation corridors within growth centers. The zone is intended to include up to 8 residential units in a dwelling in a variety of building types. So if you look at the map over here, this is the location of the subject property within the area. And over here we have the main transportation corridor, Highway 1. The properties are less than 650 meters or 2,135 feet from Highway 1. And there are several commercial zones. You can see C1, C3, and C2 zones lining Highway 1. And these commercial zones currently have a lot of commercial establishments and also permit several other commercial uses as well. And there is also a variety of residential zone found within this area, R3, R4, and R1, as you can see. And these residential zones also permit a variety of residential uses. The properties are also within walkable distance to recreation trails and the golf club over here, and there are also parks close by to these properties. So this can be considered as an active area within the community, and the staff believe that the zone placement would be consistent with the intent of the R3 zone. And the next criteria of policy 5.3.5, consider in relation to all applications to rezone land the impact of both the specific development proposal and of other possible uses permitted in the proposed zone. So in terms of the uses, the proposal is to rezone the property from the R1 zone to the R3 zone. In terms of the uses, the R1 zone and the R3 zone permits the same types of non-residential uses. And with regard to residential uses, the R1 zone permits 1-unit dwellings and secondary suites, while the R3 zone permits 1-unit dwellings, 2-unit dwellings, group dwellings, semi-detached, and also other townhouses, multi-unit dwellings containing up to 8 residential units. So although these uses are permitted within the R3 zone, the full development of the properties might not be possible given the constraints that I mentioned earlier with regard to the easements on the properties, and also given the location of the property which is within walkable distance to all amenities. Staff believe that the properties are good candidate sites for some intensification and increased residential development. As a result, we're of the opinion that the proposal and other permitted uses in the zone are appropriate and reasonable for these properties. And this here is criteria C of policy 5.3.5, which states, consider in relation to all applications to rezone land the general criteria for amending the land use bylaw set out in section 5.3, development agreements, and amending the land use bylaw. And we have the general policies here. This proposal was assessed against the set of criteria listed in this policy, and it was found to be in keeping with the intent of the MPS. There is no conflict with any municipal bylaws or regulations, and there is no financial impact on the municipality because of this rezoning. In terms of land use compatibility, the rezoning would enable additional residential uses on these properties, which will be compatible with the surrounding uses. And in terms of the non-residential uses, both these zones permit the same non-residential uses. And there is adequate schools, recreation, and other community facilities within proximity to these subject properties. Sewer services are provided by the Village of Kingston, and they've confirmed the adequacy of sewer capacity. There is an existing drilled well on the property, currently serving both properties, and it is expected to continue to do so. With regard to fire protection, Kingston Fire Chief has confirmed the adequacy of fire protection services. And with drainage, there is no existing issues with the drainage, so we do not anticipate any drainage issues as a result of this rezoning. The site is also suitable in terms of grade soils, geological conditions, and other aspects mentioned here. Moving on to some of the supporting visions, objectives, and policies that support this application. So the first two are listed here are with regard to housing, and the next two are with regard to infrastructure. With regard to housing, the proposed rezoning would enable the applicant to develop any of the housing options permitted within the zone. The rezoning would be consistent with Council's intent to enable and encourage more housing options. And with regard to infrastructure, the rezoning provides options for the applicant to develop a greater number of residential units that could be efficiently serviced by the existing sewer infrastructure. So this would be consistent with Council's goal to maximize infrastructure efficiencies. And these are some of the visions and objectives related to concentrating development within growth centers in order to protect agricultural and rural areas. The proposed rezoning would enable more developments to be concentrated within the growth center of Kingston, and staff believe that it would be compatible with the vision and objectives listed here. And these are some of the objectives related to transportation. As I mentioned earlier, the subject properties are less than 650 meters or 2,135 feet from Highway 1, which is the main transportation corridor in the area. Enabling the development of more residential units in the area would help concentrate more development densities along transit routes and major transportation corridors, which would be consistent with Council's intent mentioned here. In terms of the process, a public information meeting was not required because the properties measure less than an acre, and notification letters were sent to 39 property owners within 500-foot radius of the subject properties. We received a call from one of the neighbors inquiring about the 24-foot wide right-of-way. She believed it connected to Moshe Street, but that was not the case. And she also inquired about who was responsible for maintaining the right-of-way. The application was presented to the Area Advisory Committee on the 31st of January. Area Advisory Committee made a positive recommendation to PAC, and we are currently at Planning Advisory Committee. This is a recommendation made by Kingston Area Advisory Committee. The staff believe that the proposed rezoning is consistent with the intent of the municipal planning strategy, including all the general criteria for all rezonings. This will provide the opportunity for more housing within walkable distance to amenities and also increase the efficiency of the existing infrastructure. As a result, a positive recommendation is being made to the Planning Advisory Committee. With that, I end my presentation. I pass it back to the chair.
Thank you, Ms. Jacob. Do we have any questions from the committee on clarification? Councillor Granger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Who does take care of the road that is shared?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor. Do you mean the right-of-way?
Yes.
It would be, so whoever is using it, like it is a shared responsibility, whoever is using it, the onus would be on them. If they want to use it, they would be responsible for keeping it or maintaining it properly.
So it's if I may, it's the owners of the property? Like both properties or?
Whoever is using it. The adjoining properties, if they are the ones using it, they're responsible for it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Just to build on that, Madam Chair, to clarify, so anyone that has a registered benefit is who would be responsible to ensure that they could continue to use that. So the onus is not on the property owner that has that burden on it to ensure that it's drivable, passable. This is just a recorded right to be able to do that if they so choose.
Ms. Friars?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarification,